Greetings and salutations. Hope this finds you well. Quick shout out to the two Uber comrades and patrons supporting my channel and this content. My partner, Thank You, Rosa, and Independent Left News. So I came across this interesting article on the Friends of Socialist China website. Definitely worth checking out their analysis and commentary. And this particular one was concerning, I should say, Meng Wanzhou. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing their last name, and just really the political motivations behind the U.S. trying to, go after her, and that actually Trump, was willing to, drop the extradition request while she was being held in Canada if China negotiated a trade deal that, was favorable to the U.S. or that, Trump was okay with the conditions for. And just, again, it's just another example of U.S., aggression and just going after, political, opponents in order to meet their own ends, and just, not surprising, but really disgusting. And it seemed like when Meng returned to China, she was met with like a hero's welcome, more or less, and the whole country seemed very supportive and happy that she had been released and had been able to return to China. Right? Wait, this isn't the one I was looking for. Let's see. The one I was looking for was. One second. That should have been. Oh wait, here it is. Yeah. Here's the article I was talking about. Friends of Socialist China, platform based on supporting the People's Republic of China and spreading understanding of Chinese socialism, or socialism with Chinese characteristics. They got a webinar October 9th. I might try to see if I can attend that. They got a nice list of guests there. A couple of names I'm familiar with. Ben Norton, Danny Haifong, Daniel Dumbrill. And this article is from Rihiki Decide to say, release of Meng Wanzhou ends a contemptible mess of illegality. The release of Meng Wanzhou, chief CFO Huawei, from her detention in Vancouver and immediate return to China, and a complex saga that would fill multiple volumes. They would concern the U.S.'s underhanded moves to meet the technological and competing challenges of Huawei, particularly on 5G tech. They would detail the U.S.'s mixed and ambiguous motivations concerning China. It would further involve Canada's own entanglement and intense relations between its two biggest economic partners. All this before we even get to the details of the case against Meng. Here, we can only make a few limited but critically important points. Let's start with the deeply problematic circumstances of Meng's arrest, since the U.S. District Court for Eastern District of New York issued an arrest warrant August 22nd, 2018. Meng had traveled to many countries with an extradition treaty without being arrested. The reason was simple. Extradition is only possible in the crime in which Meng was charged was also a crime in the country through which Meng was traveling. Again, it's so completely illegal, disgusting. This was supposedly concerning, Huawei or Meng doing some type of, business with Iran, which again, the U.S. is unilaterally sanctioning, trying to sanction to death. Again, sanctions hurt the most vulnerable and marginalized. And this is unfortunately something else that the Biden administration is just Trump 2.0 on, as we've seen, foreign policies, Trump and Biden's foreign policies like that, unfortunately. Fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud to circumvent U.S. sanctions on Iran was not a crime in these countries. Moreover, the charge arises from unilateral, and therefore we must mention here, illegal sanctions imposed by the U.S. on Iran. It is hardly news that these sanctions and U.S. efforts make them stick have constituted illegal harassment of not only Iran, but also many U.S. allies. So the first point we must underline here is the very basis of the arrest is illegal. Agreed. More, without such legal sanctions, even if alleged fraud had been committed, it would be a matter between the fraudster and the entity frauded, and would at worst have involved a comparatively small fine. In these circumstances, a new charge was needed and was concocted that Meng, a Chinese national, had lied to the British bank HSBC in Hong Kong. Since alleged crime was committed by a foreign national and on foreign soil against a foreign institution, the U.S. could only claim standing to charge Meng because her allegedly fraudulent transaction would have passed through U.S. servers for some nanosecond. This reasoning would normally be a joke and bars frequented by lawyers. However, the humor is clearly lost on Canadian authorities, and after 6 European and Latin American countries already rejected U.S. demands for extradition, the Canadians complied. Of course, they did. It seems like more often than not, the Canadians, another settler colonial state, right? Founded on white supremacy and the repression and murder and displacement of the indigenous, the First Nations people up there, very similar to the U.S. The Canadians, more often than not, are ready and willing to do the bidding of the U.S. empire. They did so, moreover, in a particularly ham-handed fashion, including, as Meng's lawyer argued, illegally seizing her electronic devices and sharing information from them with the U.S. Of course they did. It's not surprising. Simple fact was that at the time, the Canadian government was under pressure from the Trump admin. Previous year, had torn up a NAFTA agreement. Intense and delicate negotiations on a U.S., Mexico, and Canada agreement were underway. Political nature of the rest was betrayed by President Trump, and he repeatedly stated they had the power to release Meng. This is what I was talking about at the beginning. If China would agree to a trade deal agreeable to him and by Canada's foreign minister, who said in December 2018 that it's very important for Canada that extradition agreements are not used for political purposes. And as Meng extradition hearing unfolded, it became more and more clear that despite the judge's initially quite questionable moves, despite the withholding of critical information by the U.S., irrefutable facts and arguments emerged in Meng's favor. Arguments were completed mid-August, so the judge was not expected to deliver her verdict until at least October. The problem was that even if the verdict went in Meng's favor, unless the U.S. relented, the Canadian government could well be compelled to appeal, and that would drag the process out for more years, even as much as a decade. During that time, Meng would remain in detention, separated from her family and country. The only solution was a deal with the U.S. prosecutors, and it has worked. If Meng has walked free and returned home without admitting guilt, it's chiefly because the case against her was so weak. Indeed, it was right at its foundations, illegal and politically motivated. There's no other way to view it, right? Revealingly, the deal was announced only after last Monday's Canadian elections, preventing the Trudeau government minority status from worsening. The whole saga testifies to those countries who bang on about rules-based international. It's only a rules-based international order when it suits the U.S. empire and their allies, and have sunk so low they can only advance their interests by violating long-established international law, which the U.S. and its partners are very good at violating laws, but as soon as somebody outside their orbit does that, well, yeah, you're bad. We got to come after you. You were trying to maybe do some business, help out Iran a little bit. We can't have that. So Canada, lock up Meng Wanzhou. But definitely, it's good that she's back in China, back in her home country, back with her family. So that's awesome. But obviously, she should have never been detained in the first place. It's just illegal, disgusting, egregious on every level. As the article points out, it was politically motivated. And, Trump even said that he was willing to release her if China was able to negotiate, a trade deal that was favorable to the U.S., that the Trump administration was okay with. And just the whole thing about, Huawei helping Iran. So fucking what? The U.S. should not be sanctioning that country. Those sanctions are illegal, disgusting. They're hurting people there very much, leading to, death and suffering. And so if Huawei or any other company or country wants to do business to try to help Iran, do it. Please do it. They need the help, and the U.S. empire there, aggression, whether it's in Iran, Syria, against, China, Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, Bolivia, North Korea. It's a long list that needs to be, pushed back against as much as possible. And if, Huawei or any other Chinese companies, any other companies, countries over the world want to push back against that, please do. You got my complete support in that matter. Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. All part of people. Peace. Much love.